What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. Go figure, the last video. Definitely not an introductory video. That's the one that gets the influx. But it gave me a reason to think about it a bit more. And I don't think this video will be any better organized, but I have some additional thoughts. I don't know if anybody else feels this way or is seeing something similar in themselves, but I've noticed over the last few years, I've become a lot less friendly and well socialized. For the most part, I don't hold doors open for people anymore. When there are who goes first situations, I go first. I don't help anyone with anything anymore. And I have almost no patience for people unless it's a situation in which I need patience. I also don't respect courtesy as much anymore. If it's me or somebody else, even on small stuff, almost always I choose me now. And I think I've adopted this attitude for two reasons. One, if you don't, you can be sure you'll never get yours. And that's because, two, this new attitude seems to be the attitude most people these days have. Nobody helps anybody. Nobody is courteous to anybody else. And it seems like with everybody, you're getting either scammed or betrayed. The world is getting increasingly dog eat dog. And while I think that's true across the board, and probably won't be getting any better, maybe within little enclaves it could, but generally probably not. I think there is a gendered component here. Because I was thinking about... Motherfucker, you son of a bitch. I can't talk with my hands with this dentist shit in my face. But it also makes speaking easier. Anyway, I was thinking about the Stellaris population ranking thing in relation to gender again, the pyramid. And I think that still holds true. A select few men at the top with a few women in there, maybe as long as they are operating within the, or as their own little patriarchs. But I was thinking about that too. Even then, think about really high status or power women in the this girl boss era. Do any of them, even the highest and most powerful, do you view any of them on the same level, at the same level of evil as Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk? Realistically, no. This is still a man's world, but it's more like a small selection of men's world. Because I was thinking about the gold, silver, bronze pyramid population thing. The last time I was thinking about this, I was under the impression more dudes than there are were in the golden highest tier, and I don't think that's the case anymore. It really is only a handful of men controlling everything. And then we get into the silver populations. We've had this idea of a bureaucratic, vaginal, vast middle management for a long time. Which is to say, in the power structure, as long as you keep most women on board with the consensus, whatever the idea that needs to be pushed is, then women lower in the bureaucracy will follow, and then that trickles down into the bronze populations, which are non-power broker men who will also mostly fall in line or shut up. Most men want most women, you'll notice even in communities like MGTOW, if these are men supposed to be going their own way, what is the one thing they are always talking about, nonstop? This is a man's world, but it wouldn't be nothing without a woman or a girl. And it's pretty genius the way this is worked out the more you sit on the idea. I wasn't going to mention this in this video, but this is a good time to mention it. Have you ever noticed the way most women can't affirm for themselves? I think the degree to which that's true has a lot to do with gender brainwashing. But I also think, at least broadly, there is something to it biologically. For survival reasons, but also for value reasons. If most women were able to affirm for themselves, then they'd be harder to control as a group, and by extension, non-power broker men would be harder to control as a group. And what I mean by affirm is most women need someone to agree with them. And it doesn't need to be the huge herd exactly, but it needs to be some kind of a herd. It's like they need to feel like other people have their back. And you have your exceptions, but by and large, that's the case. And maybe cognition has something to do with it. The SFJ statistic still weirds me out. The way cognitively, in terms of typology, an overwhelming majority of women are SFJs. And then there are knots of feelers, and then you have the thinking type women who are a very small minority of women. Whereas with men, you do have the STJ majority, but it's not, I think it was 50% or some shit with women. With men, it's more like 30%, and then outside that STJ majority, there is a shocking variety of men, cognitively. So in terms of population control, this makes sense. Women are like a bottleneck. You'd have a hard time controlling all men because of their variability, but you go to women, you have this gender programming, you have this typological majority. If you can establish one or two consensuses, it'll be followed, and men will follow them. Or they will resist or try to abstain, go their own way. But again, that doesn't work. And the new way I was thinking about this was in relation to hierarchy. Let's get mythological. Broadly, in terms of social power, the average woman is like a being higher, greater than the average man is. You walk around moment to moment, people are people, you don't see it or you don't think about it, but you start asking questions. Who in this group is more valuable? Who are people more inclined to trust? Or if something goes wrong, who are people more inclined to side with? If there's some kind of problem, who will most people default to believing? Who has more social leeway or social mobility? It's the straight white woman. It is the fat and non-threateningly jovial black woman. Or it's the mixed woman with the reading rainbow hair. And points where it's due, it's definitely not the ugly black ass black woman. It seems like low SMV black women are beginning to fight their own guerrilla war. Maybe some allies there one day. Anyway, it's not the dude or the masculine adopted out lesbian. You're also scum. This is a wide class of people without options, and you're judged by how well you can conform to this standard basic bitch consensus. And I think that's also why you see severely mentally ill women in the trenches. You have grifters, women who act like they care about Joe Dipshit, and I'm shocked people still fall for that shit. It's a separate method of extraction, but it's like a different company doing the same thing. Whereas these severely mentally ill women, they would probably have been jettisoned from life, but they have to go somewhere, and although they don't fit into these trenches we're talking about, there is nowhere else for them to go. So they end up here. Be very careful of severely mentally ill women who seem to be actually on the level. If they're somewhat successful, then that's a green flag, even though they are sentient red flags, because it means they were able to figure something out. If they aren't, then they haven't, and you really need to be careful. But day to day, Jane Dipshit is like a completely different being from Joe Dipshit or Jaquana Dipshit, living in a completely different world. And not always this world of roses and sunshine and getting whatever you want, but not scum. And if you're around this channel, you probably know how it feels to be scum. Always suspected, no mobility even for fun, no leeway if you fuck up, and ultimately nothing you can do about it, which is the key point of this video, but we'll get to that. You are an inferior being kept in psychic stasis so value can be extracted from you until the time comes at which you will be called upon to act in more direct ways like an actual being, but toward a consensus goal, not for yourself. Most scum live day to day, even if you're making a lot of money too, by the way, and your sole purpose is to earn money and pay for things and try either to fit into society or not to stand out to society. Say the right things or keep your mouth shut or run it in a little containment area. I don't think scum actually dreams about anything. They will comfort themselves with stories to make themselves feel better, which anytime you think you might be doing this, ask yourself, where is it getting you? What good is it doing? If you aren't getting any closer to what you want, then you are, in fact, comforting yourself. But what else can you do? Because to strive, you need to push boundaries and break barriers. But if you try to do that alone, at best you'll get arrested. Because to get what you want, most of the time you will need to push back against the system, because the system exists to keep you from getting what you want. Because if you were able to get what you wanted, then you'd be much more difficult to extract from. It's some actual Matrix shit. As a dude, a basic aspect of what you are is being suppressed, probably to an extent has been bred out of you, and this breeding out thing is getting worse. I think that's partially why passive aggression is even bigger in dudes than it is in women. I hate the word bud. I hate that shit. I hate people who say it. I wish I could delete the entirety of the Midwest. I hate the Midwest more than I hate the areas of the country you're supposed to hate. I have never heard anyone use the word bud outside a passive-aggressive or vaguely sarcastic manner. But why is passive aggression so big? Because even one instance of active aggression can destroy your life entirely. But active aggression is a basic part of who you are. That's what I mean by lesser beings in relation to Jane Dipshit. You aren't a man, you're a eunuch. And there's not much you can do about it, because most women won't be on your side. Dudes who should be on your side aren't on your side. As we've said before, dudes love nothing more than sabotaging and holding one another down. So if you make a stand, you'll be making a stand on your own, and you'll get mag dumped repeatedly by the gun eunuchs, which is another thing I was thinking about. It makes sense why cops are so awful. This is this is one of the few opportunities a dude can wield power and exercise active aggression on a regular basis. It's not for his interests, but a eunuch will take what a eunuch can get. And as much as I hate cops, as much as I wish them the worst for the sort of people they are and the sorts of things they do, and how much support they get from even anti-government types for some reason. That's some cognitive dissonance that's never made sense to me. I know if I were a cop, I would be the exact sort of cop I hate, for the exact reasons I hate them. But I suppose this is where we pivot to the main thrust of the video. I don't think inceldom is strictly about sex. It's a big part of it, but I don't think that's the root. I think the root comes from men's inability to express what they are, which is competing aggressively. But I think these urges get wrapped up so much in sex for two reasons. One, maybe Joe Dipshit isn't aware of it consciously, but on some instinctive level he's aware women, or the concept of women, are playing a role in the suppression of his active aggression. Sometimes as tools, sometimes as perpetrators, but overall a leaded blanket. And also, sexual acceptance is one of the only ways a eunuch can even halfway feel like not a eunuch, or part of this world we are trained to believe is the way things are, and it isn't. Because what do incel dudes always fall back on and moralize about? I want a family. I want the house and the white picket fence, or they'll go in or another cliche route. It's always cliches, but you'll notice these cliches always revolve around popular narrative structures, genres. Because as long as a eunuch wants what he's told to believe he wants, he will be easier to control. And that's why they always say the same things. And within all this, I'm not discounting the urge to blow massive loads for pleasure and emotional reasons. But an urge is being hijacked to subordinate them to the vaginal bureaucracy and ensure the scummening continues, with some consent of the extracted, even though it's an engineered consent. Not that most eunuchs will change, because what is the true realistic alternative? Resignation. And here, resignation doesn't mean giving up, but to Joe Dipshit, resignation feels like giving up because there's not even a model or story to comfort himself with. And I was thinking about resignation last night. In life, you have all the answers directly in front of you. And it's weird because now that I'm putting gameplay in these videos, I don't have, or you don't have, the flag in front of you. But as I'm editing, I have the flag in front of me, and I'm looking at it, and I see both of the answers right now. And I'm talking divinely, or at least the way mortals conceive of divinity or infinity. You have no way of knowing what's going to happen, and you have no ability to control what's going to happen. You can do your best to interpret and to understand what you can, but you won't know for certain. I consider myself an intensely spiritual person, and I've had what feels like a number of undeniable proofs in my life, but not undeniable enough, I guess, if you're being honest with yourself. And even if you did, you have no control over what's coming. The only answer, the only solution or salvation, is to accept there is no solution and no salvation, and also that you can't accept no solution and no salvation. It's a strange form of surrendering, because typically when you see people talk about surrender to whatever, they are surrendering with the intention of imposing in a sneaky way and getting what they want by surrendering, which is so it's not really a surrender. And on top of that, you act like surrender is something you choose to do, like you have a choice in this. You have no choice. You don't know, and you have no choice. That's something for you need to accept, and also understand you'll never be able to accept. This is the biggest thing you'll ever do in your life, and you'll never it doesn't matter, but it also matters a lot. You aren't trying to solve anything because there's nothing to solve. There is a fact, and you need to bang your head against it in hopes somehow of comprehending something you cannot comprehend. You accept that you'll never have peace, hoping you'll have peace by accepting you'll never have peace, but then you'll never have peace, or you do never have peace. This is the only thing to solve, except solving it won't change anything because it already is. Now, the reason I talk about all this is you are in a lesser form of this. We all are. You can't give up, or you're not losing something by giving up, like people act like it is. People act like you gotta keep fighting this and that. Keep fighting, quotes, for what? To continue being extracted from until you die? That's going to happen to you anyway. There's nothing to lose that hasn't already been lost except your life. I took a clarity piss and thought about it. To be clear, we're not just talking about incels here. I think incels are one flavor of eunuch, but most men today are eunuchs because we can't be anything else. And that's made worse because this is not the way we're supposed to be living. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. You've heard that saying before, you knew it was true then, but that's another one of the answers. You'll spend your life understanding just how much of an answer these answers are. Hemingway said World War I was the death of man. You could probably make arguments for historical moments earlier than that, but I agree World War I was where the idea of what men are supposed to be got really fucked up. And he was fascinated with bullfighting because it seemed like to him bullfighting was one of the only ways manhood could continue to exist post the death of man. Not just for the bullfighter and not just for a community of men, but for everybody. But of course, everybody hates bullfighting. They know nothing about it, but they hate it. But they'll permit industrial slaughterhouses to exist. Maybe they'll protest by going vegan or some shit, but they aren't killing people and putting a stop to it. Disgusting. Read Death in the Afternoon for more on bullfighting. And apparently there are Mithraic connections to bullfighting. There's some weird mystical shit going on in that practice. And it's the funniest shit because it's always the witchy types who hate bullfighting the most. I hate Wicca so much. It's mood board mysticism for mid looking women and also fat, bald dudes. With men, I think one of two things is going to happen. Either most men will continue to comfort themselves but do nothing while becoming worse people as the system becomes less tenable, or you'll see dudes and scum of other varieties accepting what they are, the position they're in, and the fact individually they can't change it the way they probably fantasize about changing it, and then figure out how to deal with it better. Reaching a point you can't look away, you can't hide your eyes, and find some other way to exist around the system. Accepting the fact you can't be happy or meaningful in the ways you've been taught to want to feel happy and meaningful. And maybe not happy and meaningful at all, but at least not the same shit for the rest of your life. Now, in terms of videos and the rankings of videos, I feel like this video was building up to some grand climax, and that's not what happened. Still, I think I like this video. We live in a system that is crooked, in the corrupt sense, but also in the structural sense. We're no longer able to be what we're supposed to be. And I don't think that's going to change until something major happens. Because, at least in our lifetimes, there is no way enough people will stand up and unify and change anything. At least in terms of the way society works right now. Maybe you'll see this or that revolution, but I think at most what that'll amount to is putting a different exploiter at the top and maybe removing some other ones. The system is too good for the powerful at the moment. We are ideal slaves, and we are optimized for keeping one another down. And that's what's getting worse. Okay, we managed to bring it home, fit the title well into the end. I really like this video now. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.